So in this video, I'm going to work from chapter 4 in the OpenStax statistics book. So I'm going to talk about computing expected values and standard deviations from PDF tables. So just as a reminder, if you want to access the OpenStax textbook, you can look in the description of the video for a link. And also the Excel workbook that you're going to see me work out of, it's totally free to you. You can find a link in the description, or you can go to divideandconquermath.com. Just go to the OpenStax statistics section and look for the chapter 4 workbook. So I'm on the first tab of my chapter 4 workbook. So we're looking for the expected value and standard deviation. Expected value and mean go hand in hand. Now I have here just a few hints for you, and I have a table that's kind of outlined to help us kind of walk through this first example. So to find the expected value, so you take a sum of taking each x value times its probability. So you can see here that I have a table of x values and probabilities for each x. And so the first thing that I'm going to want to do is I want to just take each x value times its probability. So we can just set up a simple formula, and hopefully you're familiar with setting up formulas. I have lots of other resources where I've talked about like how the basics of formulas work, so I'm assuming you know all that. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each x value times its probability, and then once I set that up, I can just drag it. And so that's really the main thing that you need to get to your expected value. So the expected value then is just the sum of all of these values here. So that's it for the expected value. So it's going to be 2.43. Now, the standard deviation is a little bit harder to calculate. So as you can see, you need these different pieces, and then you take a square root of this like giant sum here. So I have everything kind of outlined here in this table to help us out. So the first thing that I'm going to work on is I'm going to just take each x minus the mu, which is the expected value. So I've got here this column for x minus mu. So here's my x. And then remember, my expected value, so we already calculated that, so that's this value here. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to lock this value down. So I'm going to put a $ in front of the C and the 11. And I've talked about locking values in my chapter 1 workbook. So I'm just going to hit the F4 key so that I can lock everything, or you can put a $ in front of the C and the 11. But that's going to allow me then to drag this formula down. And so now we're good to go on that. So I need to take each x minus mu, and then I need to square it. So you can see here I've built out in the table just a little step-by-step process for us. So now I'm going to take each one of those x minus mu values, and I'm going to square them. So I'm just going to have the little roof key with the square, and so we're just going to run it like that. And then we can drag that formula again. And okay, so now I've got the x minus the mu squared, so that's done here. Now I need to take each one of those values times its probability. And so that's what this says here. So now I'm going to take this x minus mu squared, and I'm going to multiply it by its probability. And I can just drag this all the way down. Okay, great. So for my standard deviation then, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the square root of the sum of all this. And so I can write that all into one little formula here. So to take a square root, you're just going to use SQRT. And you can see here, Q's up or Q's the square root of a number. And then I'm going to take the square root of the sum. So I'm going to take the sum of all of these values here. I can close the parentheses, so you see I've got the square root of the sum of these values. And so I get 1.65 and some change. Okay. So this was kind of the nice example where everything's laid out for you. And so in the next example, I have still the formula here for you, but what I want you to do is I want you to try to compute this one totally on your own, just using the formula that we've got. So you've got all the pieces here, so we just want to make sure that you can actually read the formula. So I recommend that you pause here. I even tell you what the expected value and the standard deviation should be. So why don't you try finding these on your own, and if you get stuck, you can hit play and I'll go through the whole explanation again. Okay, so first things first, so we have to find our expected value, which is our mu. So I am just going to start by taking x times p of x. And you know me, I like to center everything, so I'm going to just take each x times its probability. I can drag those down. And so my mu is going to be the sum of all these values, so I can just sum all of these things up. Okay, so there's my expected value, my mu, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so we got 5.4, we're good to go. So now we need to work on finding our sigma, and so remember I can take this in pieces. Now I'm going to just do this in as many steps as possible, just so that you can kind of follow along with me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by taking my x minus my mu. So I take each x value minus this expected value mu, and remember you want to put dollar signs around all of this, so dollar signs around all that, and I like everything to be nice and centered, so then I can just drag this down, and I can check my formula and make sure that my mu reference didn't move, so we're good to go there. Now from here, I can take x minus mu and square each one. So I'm just going to square the values that I found in the previous column. So let's go ahead and take this squared. So I do the roof with the little 2 on it. And I'll drag all those down. And then I need to take, so x minus mu squared, and then each one of those times its probability. So I'm going to take my x minus my mu squared times the probability. So I'm just building out all the different pieces, and I'm just going to keep expanding these columns. So I take this column now times each probability. I'm going to center everything and drag it down. And I don't know why this isn't the same size font, so I'll just, there we go. Okay, cool. So now I should have everything that I need. So at the end, I need to sum up all of these values and take the square root of them. So for my standard deviation, I'm going to take the square root of the sum of these values. So let's cross our fingers. And I got 1.8, so I got exactly what I needed, so we're good to go.